Hey artists, let's talk about plaster of Paris. So we are going to be using these plaster gauze strips. They kind of start out looking like this in these big sheets. And then we are going to cut them into smaller pieces and use them to wrap a form. For this example, I'm going to show you how to make something that looks sort of like a fruit. So plaster is a gypsum powder that undergoes a chemical reaction when you add water to it, and then it hardens. So right now this is flexible. It's just powder attached to a gauze. And we're going to add water, which you can see in my bowl here, and then it will undergo that chemical reaction. But first we need to prepare our plaster. So instead of having big gigantic sheets like this, you're going to need to cut it into smaller pieces. I would say like 2 fingers wide is best. You can make it even smaller than this for finely detailed areas. But in this case, about 2 fingers wide is perfect. And then you're going to put your scissors away because I do not want scissors covered in plaster once things start to get goopy. So I have my pile of strips prepared off to the side here. I have my water and I need a form. Since we're basically going for some kind of fruit, your base could be a balloon like this. So I'm going to blow this up so it looks like some sort of rounded shape. And then I have to decide what I want to add to it to make it look like a fruit. We have a huge variety of recycled materials that you can use for this project, from egg cartons to cardboard to aluminum foil to sculpt out different pieces. And what you will do is tape those different pieces on. So say you wanted to make a stem for your fruit, which would be super basic and fine. You want to go ahead and attach it with some tape. Think logically. Pulling tape off of a flimsy balloon is not a great idea. So once you stick it, it's done. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up that form by adding the tape and making sure that it's pretty secure. But remember, the plaster will harden. So as long as I don't flex it while I'm working at it, everything's good. So that's the most basic thing you could possibly make for this. Here is mine. It is finished. I've got a leaf and a stem on this. Fruit, maybe a big pear perhaps because of the way that it's shaped. And I'm going to cover it in plaster. So what you do is you dip the strip in the plaster, make sure the whole thing gets wetted, and then you should wring it out 3 times. So 1, 2, 3, and then you'll see that it sort of becomes like a yogurty covering. And you're just going to go ahead and start applying that to your form and smoothing it down. Don't just stick it on there and then try to move quickly to the next step and keep applying. Otherwise, you're going to end up with little holes. So you want to smooth it on there so that it fills in those little gaps and doesn't leave a texture. You should think about overlapping these strips and crisscrossing them in a variety of different ways to build strength between the different layers. And ideally, every single spot on your form has 3 layers of gauze. So like this spot I overlap 2 times. I'm going to keep working my way around this thing. Notice I have to put it down, and because it's lightweight, it's going to move, but that's not a big deal right now. And I can keep working. See how they're crisscrossing? See how I smooth each one in and let that yogurty substance of the plaster and the water mixture begin to fill in the gaps. I'm going to keep on working, and we can talk when I am finishing up. As I wrap up, there's a couple things I want you to notice. Everything needs to be covered with the plaster. So I don't care if there's cardboard there underneath, but everything needs to be covered. As you work, you'll notice that this plaster begins to undergo the chemical reaction we spoke about within about 15 minutes. So I've been working on this for all of 8 minutes, and I can feel some areas that have already begun to stiffen up. That means you should work quickly and wrap everything up and not try to go back. A couple things you should notice: how filthy my hands are. So that's why the area is protected. My table is protected so that I don't have a giant mess. And that's why I'm not picking my scissors back up to cut any more pieces again. And then, last but not least, realize that you cannot get your spare strips wet before you're ready to use them, because they will begin undergoing that chemical reaction whether you're ready for them to or not. So if they get water drips on them before you're ready to use them, the chemical reaction begins, the timer starts, and they essentially become ruined. When you go to use them, they're going to be hard and crusty instead of getting soft and plaster-like they're supposed to. I'm going to go ahead and let my plaster, pear, apple, fruit dry here, and then we can work on moving to the next steps in the next video.